Aliens vs. Predator was a 2004 film that aimed to unite two of the biggest names of science fiction horror, the Alien franchise and the Predator franchise. As a self-proclaimed fan of the Alien series and somebody who has seen all but one Predator movie, Predator 2, I'm ashamed to say that I've never watched this iconic crossover movie or its sequel. Now that Alien Earth has premiered over on Hulu, I thought it was as good of a time as any to check out what this film was all about. After discovering an ancient pyramid 2,000 feet under the Arctic Circle, the founder of Weyland Corporation, Charles Bishop Weyland, gathers a team consisting of an expedition guide, archaeologist, chemical engineer, and security consultant in order to investigate the origins of this mysterious pyramid. While there, they discover two ancient evils, both of which are ready to tear their bodies apart limb from limb. So from what I understand, the Aliens vs. Predator series is generally looked at as non-canon with either of the original series, particularly because it doesn't line up with the timeline of what came later, like with Prometheus or with Alien Covenant, which makes this movie kinda confusing if you're familiar with that timeline. For instance, in the real timeline, Weyland Industries was formed in 2012, while in Alien vs. Predator, Weyland Corporation, not Industries, was formed sometime before 2004, maybe as far back as the late 1800s based off of what they discover in Antarctica. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the sprawling lore of the Alien franchise, the engineers, humanity's mysterious origins, the black goo, David's questionable experiments that literally created the xenomorphs. There is so much rich mythology there, so many worlds, so many alien species that it's hard not to be fascinated with that. But I've also got a soft spot for what Aliens vs. Predator did, tying the xenomorphs directly to the predators, framing them as the ultimate prey in an ancient coming-of-age ritual. In this movie's lore, predators seeded planets across the universe with xenomorph eggs, creating hunting grounds where young warriors could prove themselves against the deadliest opponent imaginable. On Earth, they hid these eggs beneath the Antarctic ice for thousands of years, returning only when the hunt was ready. Unfortunately for everybody involved, this time, humans just so happened to stumble into the middle of it all. Personally, I think that one of the mistakes that this film makes is just too much exposition. In order for the movie to work in general, it had to leave no stone unturned. As you know, xenomorphs aren't just born from the eggs contain the facehuggers, and the facehuggers need some kind of living host to breed the xenomorphs. So in this movie, they had to connect those dots. Not only did the predators have to put eggs on Earth, but they had to guarantee xenomorphs would come out of it. So without really explaining how they did it, at least not a very good explanation, the movie also said that there were willing humans at some point thousands of years ago that worshipped the predators like gods. Why? Who knows? These humans would then sacrifice themselves on an altar so that when those alien eggs burst, the facehuggers would have a host to latch onto, and eventually a xenomorph would come out of that. You know, for the predators to eventually fight. It's a bit of a vicious circle, and it requires a little bit too much explanation to work, which is also why, in general, retconning it was probably the best choice. Had they made connections from the very first Alien movie and built onto it throughout the entire Alien saga and Predator series, then it might have worked a lot better than what we got here. But there's still things that I love about this movie that I wish weren't retconned. For instance, the creator of the Weyland Corporation in this movie was Charles Bishop Weyland, who was played by the very same actor that played the synthetic character of Bishop in the original Alien series. So there was a connection there that I thought was really, really smart. Also, the idea of predators using the aliens to test their young on makes so much sense, almost like a science fiction equivalent of gladiators battling tigers in a coliseum. I could see aliens battling predators with the current canon. Visually, the film came out in 2004, so as you could probably expect, there's a mixture of practical and CGI effects. The practical stuff looks pretty darn good, as it usually does, but some of the CGI work leaves a bit to be desired. At times, some of that does look fake, but thankfully, not too much. One of my main complaints whenever they make a crossover versus movie like this is that you're also bringing in fans from both series, like for instance with Freddy vs. Jason. So you can never really have a clear winner, because that would alienate, no pun intended, the other fandom. So I went into the movie expecting there to be some kind of tie or draw, and I don't want to give too much away here, but I was happy with how the movie ended. I think the pacing and the structure of the film worked for the most part, and the way that it ended was both satisfactory as a movie on its own, as well as something that sets up a sequel. The movie has a lot of action set pieces that are exciting, and it introduces ideas that are fun to think about that can really only work for a movie like this. I do not think that the human characters were all that important in the long run, since the narrative sets up this idea that the Predators were always going to come down to Earth, and they were always going to fight the Xenomorphs, no matter what. It's what they've done for thousands of years. It's probably what they planned on doing for thousands of more years. So our human characters are mostly just there for the audience to connect with and feel a bit more tension or maybe a palpable threat with. But narratively, they were useless. In general, it's one of those types of movies that the less you think about, the more fun you'll have with. The more you think about it, the more issues you'll ultimately discover, and it'll be a flawed movie. Because that's exactly what it is. It's flawed, no doubt. But it's also a lot of fun for what it's worth. I'm gonna give this 72 out of 100 possible stars. For me, that is a B- letter grade. But what about you guys? Are you a fan of the Alien vs. Predator series? Why or why not? Do you prefer the Alien saga or the Predator series? Let me know. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, whenever that may be. And until then, peace out.